For millions of Australians, a superannuation fund is more than just a financial product. It's a promise, a safety net woven through decades of hard work and hope for the future. Whether it's the dream of a comfortable retirement or the reassurance that loved ones will be cared for in the face of tragedy, superannuation is a cornerstone of security for families across the country. Among these funds, Cbus stands out as one of the nation's largest and most trusted. It manages the retirement savings of the people who build our cities and homes, construction workers, tradespeople and their families, those whose daily efforts shape the very skylines we live and work in. But the core duty of a super fund like Cbus goes far beyond simply investing money. It's about stewardship, ensuring that members and their families are supported, not just in times of prosperity, but especially when disaster strikes. This means being there when illness, injury, or loss turns life upside down. Many super accounts, including those managed by Cbus, come with life and disability insurance built in. These policies are designed to provide a crucial financial lifeline in the darkest moments, offering relief and stability when families need it most. When tragedy hits, whether it's a sudden accident, a serious illness, or the loss of a loved one, families depend on their super fund to process claims swiftly and fairly. For many, this support is the difference between keeping their lives afloat and facing overwhelming hardship. Yet, recent events have revealed troubling failures at Cbus. Instead of upholding its sacred trust, the fund has been accused of delays, mismanagement, and neglect, leaving vulnerable members and their families in limbo during their most desperate times. When a super fund breaks down, it's not just a process failure, it's a profound betrayal of the people it was meant to protect. The consequences ripple through families, workplaces, and entire communities, eroding trust in a system designed to safeguard our futures. The Cbus story is a stark reminder that behind every fund are real people. Mothers, fathers, workers, and retirees, whose lives can be upended by institutional neglect. It's a call to remember that the true measure of a super fund isn't just in dollars and cents, but in the lives it touches and the promises it keeps. Cbus's crisis wasn't about risky investments or market crashes. It was about something far more personal and devastating, failing its members at the very moment they needed support the most. When people turned to Cbus in their darkest hours, they expected help, not hurdles. Instead, members found themselves caught in a web of delays and uncertainty. For many, this meant waiting not just days or weeks, but months, sometimes over a year, for their insurance claims to be processed. These were people facing sudden illness, injury, or the loss of a loved one, left in limbo when they needed answers most. The paperwork piled up, deadlines came and went, and the silence from Cbus was deafening. Imagine the stress of watching bills mount, rent overdue, or funeral costs looming, all while waiting for the help you were promised. For families already grappling with grief or sudden hardship, the lack of timely support only deepened their pain. Instead of compassion, they were met with bureaucracy and indifference. These weren't isolated incidents or rare mistakes. This was a widespread, systemic failure that left thousands in financial and emotional turmoil, unsure where to turn next. Families waited desperately for death benefits to cover funeral expenses or to keep food on the table, only to be met with stonewalling, confusion, and endless requests for more paperwork. Communication broke down completely, calls went unanswered, emails were ignored, and members felt abandoned by the very fund they had trusted for years. Cbus's broken systems didn't just fail to deliver on promises, they failed in their legal and moral duties as a trustee, leaving members vulnerable and unsupported. The law is clear. Trustees must process claims efficiently and fairly. But Cbus did neither, falling short of both legal requirements and basic human decency. The result? Real, lasting harm to the very people the fund was created to protect. Ordinary Australians left to pick up the pieces alone when they needed help the most. Cbus's failure wasn't isolated, it was massive, affecting over 7,400 members and their families. Each number is a story. A worker unable to pay bills, a widow at risk of losing her home, a child's future in jeopardy. The delays weren't a temporary glitch, but a deep-rooted operational crisis. Cbus outsourced claims administration, but the court affirmed responsibility can't be outsourced. The fund's inaction rippled through entire communities, compounding grief with financial distress. The backlog and complaints were ignored, exposing a fundamental breakdown in governance. This was a large-scale collapse, not a minor oversight. Thousands were left stranded when they needed help most, a breach of trust on an industrial scale. To truly grasp the impact of systemic neglect, imagine the widow who waited an agonizing 15 months for her husband's death benefit, a payment meant to provide comfort and stability in her darkest hour. Each day, she watched the calendar pages turn, her grief compounded by mounting uncertainty and fear about her future. The official envelope she clutched was not just paperwork, it was a lifeline, and its absence deepened her pain.
After losing my husband, I believed Cbus would be there for me, to guide me through the process and offer support when I needed it most. I thought I could rely on them to help me navigate the complicated paperwork and emotional turmoil. Instead, I found myself trapped in a maze of endless delays, automated responses, and silence. Every time I reached out, I was met with vague promises and no real answers, leaving me feeling invisible and powerless. I kept calling and emailing, desperate for any sign of progress. Each unanswered message and every minute on hold chipped away at my hope, making me feel more alone with every passing week. The process was not just slow, it was exhausting and deeply isolating. I felt abandoned, as if my pain and my needs simply didn't matter to anyone.
Her ordeal became a perfect storm of overwhelming grief and relentless financial anxiety, made far worse by Cbus's inaction and lack of empathy. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her every day, turning her mourning into a daily struggle for survival. It was only after she bravely shared her story with the media, exposing her vulnerability to the public, that Cbus finally took action and resolved her claim. The attention forced the institution to acknowledge her suffering. But should anyone have to go public, risking their privacy and dignity, just to receive the basic support they are owed? Absolutely not. No one should be forced to fight so hard for compassion and justice. Her story revealed a deep power imbalance and a system that is fundamentally broken, one that too often forgets the people at its heart. And she was not alone. Her experience echoed the struggles of thousands of others, each with their own stories of loss, frustration, and neglect. Her courage in speaking out brought much-needed attention to a widespread crisis, helping to spark regulatory action and calls for reform that could protect countless others in the future. Her suffering stands as a stark reminder of the real-world consequences when institutions lose sight of the people they are meant to serve, and why change is urgently needed.
As complaints mounted, ASIC launched a formal investigation into Cbus's practices. We found a pattern of systemic failure. Cbus knew about the backlog and complaints, but failed to act. The fund's oversight of its administrator, MUFG Retirement Solutions, was grossly inadequate. Trustees can't delegate away their legal responsibilities. Our findings led us to take United Super, Cbus's trustee, to federal court. This was a serious breach, warranting substantial penalties and public scrutiny. The court case would expose the full extent of Cbus's failures and set a precedent for the industry.
In court, Cbus admitted to systemic failures in handling claims.
The penalty, $23.5 million AUD, was one of the largest ever for a super fund, reflecting the scale of harm. The fine exceeded United Super's entire previous year's revenue, underscoring the gravity of the breach.
The court reinforced that trustees are always accountable even when outsourcing.
This judgment put the entire industry on notice. Timely, fair claims handling is non-negotiable. The decision validated the suffering of thousands and held Cbus to account.
The penalty was more than financial. It was a public declaration that trust in super funds is sacred.
Failing that trust now comes with severe consequences.
Cbus's crisis stemmed from failures in governance, oversight, and risk management.
Outsourcing claims administration is common, but Cbus failed to monitor its provider as complaints soared. The backlog grew, but Cbus didn't intervene quickly or effectively.
Warning signs were ignored and the fund wrongly blamed its administrator.
The law is clear. The trustee's duty to members is non-delegable. Cbus was responsible for contracts, oversight, and decisive action.
By allowing delays, Cbus broke laws requiring efficiency, honesty, and fairness.
The crisis was a perfect storm of poor oversight, ignored warnings, and a misunderstanding of responsibility.
Ultimately, thousands suffered because Cbus failed to put members first.
Under pressure, Cbus launched a major remediation program to compensate affected members.
Over $32 million AUD has been paid to more than 7,400 members, separate from the court penalty.
Cbus issued a public apology, acknowledging its failures and the harm caused. The fund promised not to raise administration fees to cover the penalty. Internally, Cbus claims to have overhauled its processes and resolved disputes with its administrator.
Compensation is nearly complete, and operational changes aim to prevent future crises.
Restoring trust will take time, but these steps are necessary for justice and reform.
The industry is watching to see if Cbus's changes are lasting and meaningful.
The Cbus case is a wake-up call for Australia's superannuation industry.
The record penalty signals that poor member treatment and operational failures won't be tolerated. The focus now shifts from just investment returns to how funds handle claims and support members in crisis.
Trustees are wholly accountable for their administrators. Outsourcing is no excuse.
Funds will now review oversight and performance standards, ending set-and-forget arrangements.
For members, this case brings hope that regulators can protect their rights. The best funds will use this moment to improve systems and put members first.
The Cbus case sets a new standard for trust and accountability in financial services.